Suns,
Your
baby.
Wizards are still in it, bud.
Suns are good. Wizards, yeah, the Wizards not bad. Timberwolves are fucking not
they
bad
suck
either.
now. The Wizards suck, man. They're so
I,
bad.
I haven't watched it. Obviously, yes.
I'm just because early in the season they were good, and I was like texting the chat like, "Your Washington Wizards." They've fallen apart so much.
Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, the draft show. Max Chadwick alongside Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons. So we're doing another positional ranking. We're not doing a full top 10, though. We're doing a full top 5 tight ends in the 2022 NFL draft because, honestly, tight end 6 through tight end 10 is probably like what,
Nobody cares.
6th, 7th round pick. Like, I don't know if you guys want to hear that. So we're like, for the interest of the viewer, we're going to go through our top 5 tight ends in the 2022 NFL Draft. Before we start the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Be sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Boomer Bust Draft. You can follow all of us too at Nick with Sports, at Pick and Spreads for Donnie, and at Chad_Maxwick for me. We're on YouTube. Anywhere you get your podcasts, make sure you check out the merch store as well. And of course, check out Nick's new podcast as well. Give Me 2 years and I'll name it podcast about the Washington Commanders. So if you're a Commanders fan, or if you're a fan of any other team like me, for example, who's a Steelers fan who also is kind of down in the dumps right now, I like going to that podcast and saying, hey, you know what? Someone else is in a horrible mood, just like me. It makes me feel a little bit better.
Or if you're in a situation like me where you have a good team and things are going pretty well, just go watch it anyway.
Yeah. Or if you're like Donnie, who just re-signed their franchise quarterback, Colt McCoy, today, that you're in a good position. So
we will continue to own the NFC West with them.
So go check that out. So let's get through our top 5 tight ends in the 2022 NFL Draft. And I'll kick us off with our number 5 tight end, Greg Dulcich, the UCLA tight end, who I think is kind of at a really big rise as of late. I know Daniel Jeremiah is in love with this guy. I think he's his tight end 1 in this draft. I like Greg Dulcich a lot. I think he's a pretty good athlete at his size. Tested out as a 76th percentile athlete. Ran about a 4.69 40 at the combine, which is pretty good. 7.05 3-cone, pretty good. Had a 10 foot 2 inch broad jump, which is also pretty good. So this guy's overall a pretty good athlete, and that shows up when you watch Greg Dulcich. And he also had a pretty good Senior Bowl as well. He's a really good receiver, I think. Really good separator. I think he's one of the best separators in this class at the tight end position. UCLA relied on him a lot. He also goes downfield a lot. Like, he's a deep receiver basically at tight end, which you don't see a lot. You see these guys go down like 5-10 yards down the field. Like, no, Greg Dulcich is like getting targeted like 15-20 yards downfield, which is very enticing to see. But not only is he getting targeted deep downfield, usually when you get targeted deep downfield, you don't get a lot of yards after catch because of that. Where it's kind of like, okay, you'll get tackled immediately. No. Greg Dulcich is getting targeted deep downfield and also is, I would say, the best after the catch in this tight end class. That's how good Greg Dulcich has been. So he's been a late riser for a lot of people because of Daniel Jeremiah. And I went back and watched him more too because of how high DJ was and how much I respect DJ. And I was like, yeah, man. And, he ends up being a top 5 tight end in this class for me. And he's in pretty good hands too. Is he much of a blocker? No, he's an okay blocker right now. Not much, but you really are going for him as good athlete who's going to get open, who can create after the catch, and he's going to be a downfield receiver for you. So I think Greg Dulcich could be a pretty decent starting tight end maybe down the road for some team.
Our number 4 tight end is Jake Ferguson, a tight end fullback hybrid. I actually have him listed as out of Wisconsin. This is the type of guy that obviously I would be a big fan of because I think he is like a football nerd's dream. Like, this is a utility player, right? Like, this is like as ancillary of an ancillary piece as you could possibly have for an offense. He's going to be like a big Kyle Juszczyk who isn't that athletic, but he's valuable because so the Wisconsin offense is just weird. Like, it's not Navy. Like, they don't run wingbacks. They run like power I, but they normally have 2 tight end fullback hybrids that they move around for blocking purposes. Like, how Trent Williams was used in the Niners offense and how they motioned him a couple times in the playoffs, used him different ways to get blocks. Well, they normally have 2 guys on every play, tight ends or fullbacks, who, although they will get involved in the run game sometimes on carries, and they will catch passes sometimes, their most important thing is that they are just given all these different motion blocking assignments from different points in the field, and they have to carry them out. And this guy, I would give him credit for being extremely good at this. And I don't think he's like super powerful for his size. He's like a fine athlete, like kind of middling. But for the different number of ways that Wisconsin used him as a blocker, as a fullback, as a tight end, as a guy who had to pass protect at times, as a guy who motioned in a lot of different ways, sometimes as a ghost motion guy, sometimes as a cross motion guy, blocking, into space, running full speed. He was pretty good. He hits his assignments every time. He gets his hips around. He's fluid in space. Yeah, when he engages, I think he drives guys back really well. He's got a good leg drive. Now I think is because he's not the best athlete, he can be smothered at times by bigger defensive linemen. But I think because of what he did in Wisconsin, when you have these more intricate offenses that run a lot of motion, that run a lot of, what we're used to call trick plays, but are really becoming more, jet motion, more like normal parts of offenses, this is a guy that opens up more possibilities for your playbook. And then as a pass catcher for me, I don't, again, I hammer this home. I don't think he's a great athlete, but I think he's got good hands. And I think he's nifty enough as a route runner that he can take advantage of space. And I think he is pretty quick at running upfield, and he is a tough, scrappy runner after the catch. He'll get extra yards. I don't think this is a guy you expect to be, getting 20-yard catches downfield, but this is the type of player you don't see in the draft very often. Because of his versatility, and that makes him valuable, whether he's this elite athlete or not. It's a guy that could do a lot of different things for your offense, and I'd be very interested to see who ends up getting him and how they use him. Personally, for me, obviously I think he works well in that Shanahan system, but I don't think he's limited to just that. I think Baltimore could use a guy like this really well. I think even a team like Washington, who uses a lot of motion, could use him really well. There are teams that run the ball more than average, could use a blocking tight end more than you think. I think in today's NFL, and this guy isn't just a blocking tight end. He gives you more opportunities in that playbook to get creative. And there's a lot more value, I think, to creativity in the playbook than we assign as analysts on this show, quite frankly, and any show often. I just think this guy really opens up a lot of possibilities in that department.
Yeah, I also think he was the best tight end at the Senior Bowl too. Like he was awesome at the Senior Bowl. Like and Trey McBride was there, and Cole Turner and other guys were there, and like I thought that and Isaiah Likely too. And I thought Jake Ferguson might have been most impressive of the bunch there.
And Charlie Cole was there, and he was on special teams, which is kind of funny. Well, speaking of Charlie Cole, this guy, number 3 on our list, it was between him and Charlie Cole for who was tight end 1 in the preseason. That's Jalen Wydermyer, the tight end from Texas A&M. Good transition there. I just definitely that was on the fly, so I'm glad I thought of that. But I don't know, man. Like he's fine. Like I don't think this tight end class is very good. I was talking to these guys before we hit the record button. I think this tight end class is like one of the worst I've seen in a while. Like I'm just not a big fan of it. Like I like the top 2 guys. I don't love them. Like I think they're later day 2 picks. Like I don't think there's a guy who should go anywhere near the second round. Like, I don't know. I'm not that big a fan of this tight end class. But back to Wydermyer, I think he's fine at everything, and he's not really great at anything. He's a bit small at the position. I think he's like 6'3.5", which it's fine. It's not great. It's not small. It's whatever. Weighs about 260, which is actually a little bit bigger than I thought he would weigh in. But his athleticism, he's fine. He has decent speed, not great. It's whatever. He does have soft hands, though. I will say that. I think he has good hands. His route running is whatever. I think he can be a tight end who could also play in the slot, and I think he could be like that true like Y weapon. I mean, I don't know. Like he's fine. Like that's all I can say about him. Like I had a lot of expectations for him going into this season. I do understand he did lost Kellen Mond, but it's not like Kellen Mond is that great anyway. So it's not like he lost like a Trevor Lawrence or like a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields or something. Like yeah, he lost a guy who got drafted, but it's not like Kellen Mond's like a superstar. He was just fine. So I thought maybe he could take a leap anyway, and he just didn't. I don't want to say he had a down year like Charlie Cole did, but. He had a down year.
He had a down year,
but not as bad. Not as bad as Kohler, in my opinion. Like I thought he was. I don't know. Was he really that bad?
I don't think he was great. Last year, I will say last year I thought he was really good, and I was like maybe like a high second round pick, and then like this year I thought he just fell off the map, and they kind of just forgot about him. I think.
Yeah.
It flashes.
Yeah.
It feels like draft analysts are still pushing the narrative for Wydermyer tight end 1. It feels like a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah. There were some murmurs about his interviewing not being great at the combine this a couple weeks ago, so that might push him down draft boards too. We'll see. I don't know how he tested. I didn't really look at that, but
I didn't either.
I think he's like a good route runner. I think that's like that. He's got, he's a good route runner, pretty elusive after the catch. But like, yeah, I agree with you, Donnie. Like, he's not much of a blocker either.
No, like I don't really think he's that elite at anything. Which, to be honest, there's only like 2 tight ends in this draft that are elite at something, and it's the guys we'll get to in a second. I think Wydermyer is fine at everything, and then he's bad at other things. I would take him in late round 3 at best, maybe even day. Late round 3, and then maybe day 3. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Man. I'm not a big fan. I'm just not a big fan of this tight end. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and say this tight end class is significantly worse than the quarterback class. Like, at least the quarterback class has upside with like really, really, really good upside. And I know the top 2 guys are both decent, and one of them does have really good upside. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of this tight end class. I think the quarterback class is a lot better.
I think he was one of the guys who lost the most money this year. Like where he lost a lot because he was, like I said, he was really good last year as a true
Spencer
sophomore.
Rattler.
Yeah, well, Rattler, yeah. But guys were in this draft, I'm saying. But like, yeah, he went from being like great last year as a sophomore to like, I think he really regressed this year. And I was not impressed by his tape this year at all.
More proof that Kellen Mond is elite. I'm kidding.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer. Yeah, now he's gone. Maybe Kevin O'Connell just gave a fat contract to Kirk. Big week for Kirk's, man. Big week.
Big week for Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, the Kirk Cousins. Everybody's getting overpaid. But no, at the end of the day, Wydermyer is fine. Like, if you have him tight end 1, whatever. But he's not none of these tight ends, in my opinion, are second round picks, except maybe one of these guys. But even then, like, I don't know. He's whatever. He's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin O'Connell, the next Washington offensive coordinator to get added to that graphic of great head coaches. Number 2 on our list is Isaiah Likely, who's a guy I've actually kind of gone back and forth with as my number 1 tight end because I really like this guy. I've had some trouble like actually having him as a number 1 tight end as saying he's anything higher than like a high 3rd round pick because he's a weird prospect. Like, he's a really weird prospect. And he came in this year, I think, under 235, and it was intriguing to see he came into the combine at 245, so he's added weight. But then he also didn't test, which makes me worried that maybe the added weight has slowed him down a little bit because I had him listed as a guy who I thought could run in the 4.6s, has shown some breakaway speed. He had a 99-yard touchdown this year against Arkansas State, which is, for anyone, you've got to be able to run a little bit to do that, right? Like, you can't, no one just walks 99 yards. But he's an H-back type that I think in certain offenses could really be, on his high end, a difference maker at the NFL level. This is one of those guys that I think has the ceiling that makes him intriguing as a draft pick, earlier on day 2, if you're like interested in him. He's undersized, but for his size, he's an excellent athlete. Let's talk about his blocking first, though, because I think it's really interesting. He's not, in line like an excellent blocker. Like, you're not gonna like use him for that. But I think as a motion guy or a guy on screens out of like trips that you put him in space and you have him block, he's a menace. I love seeing him downfield blocking. Like, he is crazy in space blocking. And it's confusing to me because when I played very little receiver, but I always found blocking in space like incredibly difficult. And for him, like, he just, I don't know, he's got some mindset when he's attacking in space. He is an awesome blocker. I love watching him block in space. He attacks defenders. He shoves them to the ground. He shows that athleticism off. He's a fun guy to watch blocking. I have menace written down is the word that I have for him when he's in space. But when he has the ball, great balance. The guy can jump. He has some possession ability. His hands are like fine. There's a couple drops I think on tape that I don't love, but he's got great hops. There's a play where he hurdles a guy against Kansas, which you hurdle a guy, you're a 1st round pick. Got to remember the Najee Harris rule. He's a guy you just want to give him the ball in space for his size. He's not quite Treylon Burks, but he can move. He's shifty. He can run. He's got some burst. He can run you over. And I think that effort you see in his blocking downfield translates to his with the ball in his hands. He is just he's I hate this term because I think it's overused, but he's a jitterbug. Like the guy is a firecracker. When he's got the ball in his hands, you're going to get everything you need out of him. And he worked really well in that triple option offense because they needed like a tight end who could motion and get used on these weird kind of like motiony jet sweep plays or dumping the ball off, giving him screens. In a Shanahan system, I would love to see like the Niners with the 58th pick, the Jets with their first third round pick. I think this guy like has the ability to be a even more impactful Kyle Juszczyk to the point where we're like, wow, this guy's like really good. Like I could see this guy, being a consistent 800 yard a year guy who also is an impressive downfield blocker. And he could be a difference maker. Like I like it. He's different. And he didn't play great competition because it's Coastal Carolina, but there is some intriguingness to the type of athlete he is. And again, a term we don't like to use. He's fun to watch. Like this is my fun to watch guy in this draft. Like I love watching.
I agree.
Like it.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. And I love how you brought up the blocking because I feel like that's the biggest negative for people. But when I watched it too, Nick, I was like, I don't know why this is such a huge negative. Like, I think that, I agree. He's not an inline tight end for sure. But you put him in the slot, man, like he is a willing blocker in space. I completely
Kyle
agree.
Shanahan is going to love that.
I love that. I love that.
And so will Mike McDaniel. He might be a Dolphins pick too. They love the receivers that can block. This is just a
Hunter
big
Long
receiver
though. Hunter Long. They drafted Hunter Long.
Hunter Long. That's my guy. I actually liked Hunter Long a lot. That was maybe one of my big L's last year.
Let's draft a third tight end. Mike McDaniel draft a third tight end. You can never have too many tight ends.
All right, this guy is probably, I would say, the consensus tight end one. I do think it's closer than people think, though, with Isaiah Likely. I think Likely is a very good player. Trey McBride, the Colorado State tight end, who I like a lot. And I think he's another guy like who I mentioned before, Greg Dulcich. Like, they relied on Greg Dulcich a lot in the UCLA offense. Well, Coastal Carolina relied a lot on Isaiah Likely, and Colorado State relied a lot on Trey McBride. There's actually one game against Toledo this year where Colorado State threw for 110 yards in that game. Trey McBride had 109 of those 110 yards. Only one receiving yard was not Trey McBride in that game. I personally, forget tight end, I've never seen any running back have that for rushing yards. I've never seen any receiver have that for receiving yards. Like the only position is quarterback for passing yards. Like you don't see that where a guy is literally the entire offense for a game. That's what he was for Colorado State. I think he's got good speed. Unfortunately, we couldn't really see it at the combine. He didn't run a 40 at the combine, but showed off pretty good explosion for his size with a 33-inch vertical and a 9'9" broad jump. Came in a little smaller at the combine, though, than I thought he would be. He's 6'4", 246 pounds. He's listed at 260 at Colorado State, so maybe drop some weight to jump better. I don't know, but we'll see at the combine. But he really was the focal point of that Colorado State offense. Ran a really diverse route tree. Like he won downfield again. This what I love to see for tight ends, not just being a guy that you're going to go take a 5-yard slant. Like Trey McBride was going downfield for Colorado State, and he was a really good target down the field for them. So I think he's an all-around tight end. I don't know if he's the most physical, especially with 246 pounds. So he's got to add a little bit of weight, in my opinion. But you want maybe a high usage role. That's where you have him in the NFL. And Donnie, you mentioned maybe a late second round pick. I could see him, maybe sneaking into that second round just because of how good he was this past season. I mean, he won the I'm blanking on the tight end award. The Mackey, yes, the Mackey. Thank you, Donnie. The Mackey Award. He won it for a reason, man. He was the best tight end in college football this year, and he was really good. And Mike Renner had this comp. I'm going to steal from him. I thought it was great. Dallas Goedert. That's the kind of tight end I think that you're seeing in Trey McBride. So I like Trey McBride a lot. He's my tight end one in this class, but I do think it's a lot closer than other people think. So real quick, I'm throwing this at you guys. We didn't even talk about this before the video, but since we only did a top 5 tight ends video, Donnie, is there and Nick, you can go too, and I'll go. Is there any guy not in the top 5? Who's your next best guy that you think, deserves a little bit of love here?
I guess I'll go first. So the guy I had is actually tight end 4 is Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State. Shout out Theo for having him as a first-round prospect.
Theo loves it, yeah.
Yeah, it's questionable. I don't see it, but I mean, hey, I love the take. Yeah, it's spicy. You can have hot takes in this draft, though. You can. For sure. You can't.
You don't want to be an echo chamber either. You don't want to hear the same take over and over.
Well, that, and also last year you couldn't really have any hot takes. You couldn't say Fry me a tight end in 1, or you'd be viewed as an idiot.
Yeah.
You couldn't say anyone else but Lawrence, except if you're Chris Sims as QB1.
Well, we won't get into Chris Sims too much of this, but
to be fair, he
we have
was
some
right.
Chris Sims sticks.
He was right a lot before last year. I don't see last year's rankings.
He said Kellen Mond was a better pure thrower of the football than Trevor Lawrence. Do you guys remember what he said?
Yeah, he had Mond over Justin Fields.
But I mean, hey, he was right before, so we'll see if the Kellen Mond's.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Vikings sitting pretty with their franchise quarterback wasn't playing. Meanwhile, the Bears are just messing around here with this other guy.
Back to Jeremy Rucker, Donnie.
Yes, back to Jeremy Rucker. Once again, me getting off topic. I think just like Wydermyer, except worse, he's fine, except worse than Jalen Wydermyer, because I still think Jalen Wydermyer is probably a day 2 pick, like a late day 2 pick, but Jeremy Rucker to me is a day 3 pick. 4th round, tight end, maybe 5th round, preferably 4th round. I think he has good height. I think he has a good build. I think he's a decent athlete. I think he has average athleticism. Don't quote me on that when it comes to his athletic score, but I think it's average. I think he has good hands. I think he has a good catch radius. I think he actually, every now and then, he'll make like a really, really, really impressive catch. Yeah. That's like, wow, why can't you do that more often? But
yeah, good blocker too.
Yeah, good blocker. Average route runner. 0 production. Big no production guy. Production.
It's tough in that offense, though.
I get it. But I mean, 26 catches in 11 games, 300 yards, and I think he had like 2 touchdowns. Like,
yeah, it's tough.
It's not great. I mean, I get it. You have one of the greatest wide receiver prospects of all time, Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then you have Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, so I get it. But still, like, I don't know. I only 300 yards. I don't know.
It's tough, yeah.
A little more, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to blame him entirely. But, yeah, I think he's a good blocker. I think he's a whatever route runner. I think he has good hands, and he'll make some really, really, really impressive, spectacular contested catches. Like, literally, I remember one play. I forget who it was, where he like jumped up in double coverage and snagged it in the air. And I'm like, who the heck is this guy? Who is this guy? Because that was the first play I saw of him. And I was like, who is this guy? And then I watched more and I'm like, wait, where'd he go? Because he just doesn't really do that much. Mm-hmm. But I think he's fine. He's my tight end for, like I said, I don't like this tight end class. I just don't. I think there's only like maybe 7 guys, maybe 8 who are worth getting drafted. Like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of this tight end class. I've only scouted about 9 tight ends, and 8 of them I think are draftable, and then the last one no. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when we get near the actual draft season, when I actually like watch more. But as of right now, this tight end class isn't good, and he's just another guy who's a day 3 pick.
There's always one random tight end that gets drafted. Speaking of, just a side note on Jackson Smith and Jigba stuff, a lot of you people, especially in the TikTok comments, not fans of wide receiver 1, which I just wilded by based on the past 2 years of arguably the 2 most impactful players getting drafted were Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. But apparently we don't take wide receivers at number 1 in a league where, Jacksonville just doled out nearly $20 million for Christian Kirk because they're looking for a wide receiver 1. But apparently we don't value this position.
Yeah, Nick, one guy was like, one guy was like, man, the only guys who take at number 1 are quarterbacks, guys who protect the quarterback, guys who rush the quarterback, and he's like, or if there's a generational running back. And I was like, what? Like, dude, this is 1992.
Wide receivers. You were
doing so well. You were doing so well, and then you had to say generational running back.
One's done for the Giants.
Would you rather, real quick, I just want to ask you this real quick. Would you rather draft Kyle Pitts or like Barry Sanders number 1 overall?
What era though?
Right now.
Oh, Kyle Pitts. Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna let you know right now. People are gonna get pissed. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're not clipping this. We're not
most of the people who are getting pissed were not alive when Barry Sanders was running the football. So anyway, 2 tight ends here. Kyle Pitts, another example of a guy who's a big impact player who catches the ball. So there you go. I'm going to talk about the non-combine guys here because I know Max is going to talk about the combine guy. Let's just mention 2 here. Charlie Kohler is, to me, just Jeremy Rucker. Like, I think they're like the same player. It's like
they're the same player.
Whatever. They play tight end. They will play tight end for you. They'll
good production though. Just not a great
replaceable
athlete.
what they produced. Yeah.
Well,
And then
Cole had
Cade-
better production than Jeremy.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the athleticism, though. It's just, it's
Oh
not,
yeah.
you know?
And then the other guy's Cade Otton from Washington, who is he's your blocking tight end. Also not a great athlete. I don't know. He blocks though.
I'm sensing a theme here.
This is why we don't do a top 10. For any of you who are disappointed by our only doing a top 5, like, this is what we would have been saying for like the number 6 through 10. So this is why.
And I'm low on this tight end class, so imagine what I'd say like 2 sentences and then I'd be done.
Like, I don't know.
He blocks, except he doesn't block Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah,
That's it.
True. Him and Jackson Kirkland, man.
But apparently Georgia just locked him down.
Georgia locked him down.
Georgia locked him down.
George, he's a day 3 pick now after that Georgia game.
He didn't do anything again.
Aiden Hutchinson was really a number 1 pick. Michigan would have won that game.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, I haven't even thought about that. That's a good point. Please, I mean, we keep hyping up the TikTok. Actually, Donnie, we're way off topic. The TikTok just hit 3,000. Donnie, I don't know if you saw. Go check out. I did a video on how that myth is just so bad, man. And the Georgia shutting down Aiden Hutchinson was not true. They just avoided him. Okay, my guy who I'm going to talk about, Nick was actually got to it pretty well. Is Jelani Woods? I think deserves a little bit of a shout out here, only because, and I mean only because, he was a 99.7th percentile athlete. And yeah, really good. And I think that the tight end position underratedly is like one of those positions where athleticism really does matter. You know, like you got to have a little bit of speed to succeed at tight end, and especially in today's NFL. And Jelani Woods has that, man. I mean, he ran a 4.6 140, which is really good for a tight end. And this guy is freaking huge. 6'7", 253 pounds, put up 24 reps in the bench press, also great. And he ran a 4.61. Like a 4.61 for a guy who's that big.
He's Gronk.
It's really impressive. No, it's not Gronk. The problem with Jelani Woods is that when you turn on the tape, like, it is so middling, and you're like, man, like, this amazing athlete, like, yeah, he made himself some money for sure, but like, he wasn't that great of a receiver at.
It's not like they had nothing at QB either. Brennan Armstrong's like kind of.
No, Brennan Armstrong is like actually a good quarterback. I mean, he's gonna be a fun eval next year in the 2023 draft. I actually like Brennan Armstrong a little bit, the lefty from Virginia, but does not separate very well, even though he runs a 4.61. He's pretty good after the catch, I think, but like, he dropped a lot of balls. In fact, he might have the worst hands of any tight end that I've scouted so far. But he's actually surprisingly good in contested situations. So overall, like, Jelani Woods, like, maybe get this guy the ball in space and let him do some work. But his just tape wasn't that good enough. But he was, you know, a 99.7th percentile athlete at tight end. So there's something to be said for that. And maybe an NFL team will say, hey, we know his tape wasn't that good, but let's get this guy in our building, and maybe we can develop him into a starter down the line. And again,
edge rusher.
Yeah, or literally an edge rusher. Yeah, 4.61 at 253, 6'7". I'll take that. But yeah, so Jelani Woods, I think, deserves a little bit of a shout out, even though the tape was kind of middling. But again, freak athlete, the best athlete of any tight end in this class. That's what we got on our top 5 tight ends, plus a little extra at the end there. Let us know what you think about this tight end class. Do you think it's horrible like Donnie? Do you think there's actually something to be said for it? And there's some guys that will actually be really good. There's a guy that we missed that we didn't talk about at all. You think deserves a shout here? Let us know in the comment section below. Again, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Boom or Bust Draft. Follow all of us personally too at Pick and Spreads for Donnie, at Nick with Sports for Nick, at Chatham_Maxford for me. And check out Nick's podcast too. Give me 2 years and I'll name it. That podcast is the Washington Commanders one, which is a lot of fun. So for Nick Merriam and Donny Clemons, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a great night.